Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce webinar today. We'll be hearing about the ways to win new business in the new normal. My name is James Lloyd-Smith, and I'm the Digital Marketing Manager of Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and I'm delighted today to welcome Rob Pollard from Lightbox Digital Agency, Richard Crooks and Martin Proctor from Do Everything Differently. Before we hear from those, I would just like to outline some of the support that Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce are delivering at this time. Who are we and what do we do? We are essentially a non-for-profit business membership, business support organisation who have been around since 1813. Our aim is to connect, support and grow businesses just like yours all over Greater Birmingham. We help businesses with absolutely everything from marketing to sourcing customers locally to even getting started and then even expanding globally. Throughout the coronavirus pandemic, of course, there's been huge change and a lot of disruption, but the Chamber have developed a wide variety of resources to keep businesses moving. From our coronavirus hub to the latest government support and policy, of which there's been a fair few announcements, we are here to support and even clarify this information for you. So when you return to business, you can come back to normality with ease. I'm really excited about this webinar. It's very topical for all businesses, including the Chamber itself, as it shows the importance of what digital practices have done throughout lockdown. And we have a number of resources available for you digitally, just like our GB Chamber chat, which can be found on Twitter every day, through to our membership blogs and online webinars just like this one. All can be found online at www.greaterbirminghamchambers.com. So yeah, please go and check out that if you would like to see those resources. Just about our upcoming webinars, on Monday the 15th of June, we have Supporting Your Local Supply Chain in a COVID-19 World. Tuesday the 16th of June, Quarterly Business Report Q2 Breakfast Briefing, the Road to Recovery in Greater Birmingham. Wednesday the 17th of June, an Introduction to the Armed Forces Covenant. Thursday the 18th of June, 4 Steps to Accelerate Recovery and Growth. Friday the 19th of June, Supporting Local Businesses Supply Chains Through Procurement. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Rob and our speakers. So yeah, if you'd like to post any questions or any thoughts, please comment in the chat box and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session. So yeah, if I'm going to hand over to Rob, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all at the end.
Thanks, James. Just get this loaded up. Okay, guys, so thanks ever so much for joining us and taking time out of your busy day to join us on our webinar. Today, we're really going to explore 3 key areas that have changed in the current economic landscape and look at how you can win or go about presenting yourself to win new business. And essentially, there's three areas that we're going to cover. First one is spend and identifying opportunities. Second is digital, and then the third is remote and remote selling. And we're just going to touch on some research conducted by McKinsey & Company, which really focuses on those 3 areas that I think it's really interesting because it can be quite easy. I mean, it's such a black swan event and we find ourselves in a lot of uncertainty, but actually businesses are still maintaining spend and in some cases increasing spend just to get ahead of the market. You know, when everybody else is feeling like, you know, in a negative mindset, those that stay positive will rise to the forefront. In terms of digital, I think we've all experienced over the last 2 months that actually we're all spending a lot more time on digital channels, whether that's video conferencing or buying essentials online that we probably didn't before. But their research shows that digital interactions are up almost double. So digital is it's always been a growing channel, but I think what's happened with the current climate is that business-to-business companies are accelerating their digital plans and their digital transformation. And then remote and remote selling, and almost 80% of sales have actually moved to video conferencing for obvious reasons that we can't all get together at the moment. But it just shows that how important that getting it right on video conferencing is. So the objectives of the webinar is to how do we respond to these key market changes? How do we find new opportunities with businesses that do continue to spend? And how do we approach digital to unearth those opportunities and attract new clients? And then once we are engaging with them, how do we sell remotely effectively? So, and hopefully you'll take some tools and techniques and ideas from this webinar to implement into your own businesses. So it's very easy in times like this just to kind of look at all the negatives and see all the things that aren't happening. But actually, when crisis is presented to us, so is opportunity. And as illustrated by the statement from John F. Kennedy, and I think that's really important to take into anything that we're doing in terms of business planning at the moment and marketing planning, is that actually focusing on the positives, there are opportunities out there. So I'm just going to hand you over to Richard Crooks, who's going to talk about how to actually identify these new opportunities.
Okay, thanks, Rob. It's probably a really tough time for many of you out there. Your customers may be spending less with you, or they're probably not spending anything at all. So what I'm going to cover in my bit is actually talking about how you actually tap into the spending that is still going on out there. As Rob's identified, businesses are still spending, but we're going to talk about how you can tap into that. I'm a bit like Boris Johnson's today in that Rob's driving the slides. So next slide, please, Rob. Thank you. So the thing is that the world's changed quite rapidly under COVID-19. We're all spending a lot more time at home. We're ordering takeaways from the restaurants we used to go visit, and we're all spending a lot more time online. There's loads of other things that are happening. I think the key thing is to identify those changes, identify those opportunities, and if you can actually provide solutions, there's a huge opportunity to be had out there right now. Next slide, please, Rob. And what we've done is that in order to access those opportunities, we've come up with a 5-step process in order to do so. And this is all about linking your capabilities to what opportunities are out there right now, but also pinpointing those customers who are probably doing quite well at the moment, who are thriving, who you can actually target specifically. So I'm going to take you through this 5-step process now in a bit more detail. So let's start with step 1, please, Rob. Okay, so we start by actually looking at your own business before we start looking at the opportunities out there. And you start to think about your own capabilities. And we've listed some of the things here that you might want to look at in terms of assessing your own capabilities. Why do we start here? Because you can only succeed at the stuff that you're really good at. So it's really important to begin by thinking about what your strengths are before you start to look at the opportunities that are out there, which is the next step. Step 2, please, Rob. Before we go on to actually just explore step 2, let me talk about an example here. We work with a company called On Productions, an events company, who obviously their market was devastated with COVID-19. They've actually developed an online platform for events. Now, we did the capability assessment work with them. And the interesting thing is that they are really good at making sure that that events look great and that everything goes according to plan. And therefore, they built an online platform that transferred that capability into their new online platform to help online events run smoothly and look great. So step 2, once you've thought about your capabilities, the next thing is to list your potential customers, those that you know well enough to be able to speak to and find out about what their current challenges are and how you can help them. Now, speak to existing customers but also speak to former customers, and also speak to contacts within your wider network. We did this exercise with a company recently who had about 30 customers, but when we looked at all their contacts, they had we managed to find them a list of about 200 people to speak to. Next slide, please, Rob. Once you've got this list of customers, potential customers, the key thing is then to start to prioritize and think about those customers who are thriving, those who've got the opportunity to spend and buy from you. One of the ways you can do this is look at those industries that are actually doing quite well at the moment. And we've listed a few of those here. The healthcare is an obvious one. And in fact, a company we're working with has just received a massive order from NHS England to provide a component to go into PPE face shields. So think about those industries that are doing well at the moment. Next slide, please, Rob. Also think about those potential customers who are actually benefiting from current trends that are going on out there. So a few trends there is at home. We're doing a lot more at home. We're actually receiving a lot more of our goods through being delivered. We're all remote working. And also a big trend out there is obviously keeping everyone safe and socially distant. So just picking on that last point, we work with a company called Hollywood Monster. Again, a bit like the previous company, they're involved in the exhibitions business, producing large signage for events. They now actually provided signage and safety screens to help companies to keep their teams and customers safe and socially distant. And actually, they've been quite successful recently, winning a number of big contracts with big retailers ahead of all the retailers opening up again next week. Next slide, please, Rob. Also, when you think about companies, let's think about companies that could thrive with your help. So think about how you can help businesses to serve their own customers' new needs. Again, an example here is that we're working with a company who actually manufacture thermal image cameras, and obviously they can use those for fever detection and to measure temperatures of people in and out of buildings. And we're currently helping them in terms of their own marketing to communicate to their messages to a new market and win new customers. Next slide, please, Rob. So once you've done all your research and you've identified where the opportunities lie, we suggest that you then start having conversations with your customers. And here's some of the key things to start to think about and ask. Identify what your customers' key challenges are right now. Is it that they need to win new business? Do they need to reduce costs? Do they need to help to communicate differently to their employees or others? What's their appetite to invest? Have they got the money? But also, have they got a positive mindset to want to invest right now? And how do all these challenges map onto your capabilities, the ones you've listed in our step one? And how can you now solve these challenges for those businesses? Okay, so final step. Once you've got all this information, you can start to think about designing something that helps those companies to solve their pressing needs. And because it's a capability of yours, you have the right to win this business. And we think that really that this is both, this doesn't have to be a radical thing. It's not about inventing something new. It might be just about repurposing what you do. So in the case of Hollywood Monster, it's the same product, signage. It's just a different purpose. It's signage for safety rather than signage for exhibitions. So it doesn't have to be radical. It's all about following this process and thinking through the opportunities. Next slide, please, Rob. Finally, just like to touch on who we think is our a great example of someone who's pivoted to a new opportunity here. This is Pete Heat, who's taking his magic online through Zoom, and he's thriving at the moment because it means that he can do multiple shows every night rather than just the one gig. Now, you don't have to be a magician to succeed. What you should do and can do is simply follow our process and look for those opportunities. Once you've found the opportunities, then it's about marketing those opportunities to prospective customers, which Rob's going to talk about next. And then it's probably about selling those opportunities at the moment remotely, which is what Martin's going to talk about afterwards. So thank you very much, and over to Rob.
Thanks, Richard. So now we're going to talk about, once you've identified opportunities, how to approach digital to find and win new customers. And I think that, yeah, as I said at the start, everybody has experienced more time interacting with digital at the moment. The rise of e-commerce over the last decade or two has definitely translated more now into the B2B arena. And I think that B2B brands that invest in their digital and customer experience will come to the forefront of their market. So the primary challenge to be successful on digital is actually nothing to do with digital at all. It still comes down to the fundamentals of marketing and brand. And it's really about understanding and defining your customers and creating those customer personas, defining a very clear value proposition, make yourself stand out from your competitors, but making your customer the hero, not your brand. And I think that's really important, because there's too many businesses that talk about themselves when actually you should be talking about how to help the customer, how you help the customer, and make their experience effortless. So from finding you through digital channels to engaging with your services. So in terms of customer personas, any digital project that we do, in terms of whether it's a website, e-commerce, or digital marketing, we always start with customer personas, because it's really important that as a business we understand who we're actually talking to or who we're actually targeting. And actually you can have some fun with these. Get the team together, talk about it together, identify who they are, what motivates them, why do they need your product or service, what value are you giving, what do they value more importantly. So one person's perception of your services and what's valuable to them might be completely different to somebody else's. What are their pain points? What problems are you solving? How are you making their life easier? Because I think once you start tapping into the emotional side and any pain points that they have, it becomes very powerful. And you can have some fun with how you capture those personas as well. And it can even become part of your DNA as a business. Share them around the business through the team. It become part of your culture. But then also identifying how you communicate with them, because whilst one audience might quite like a chatty, relaxed narrative when you're communicating with them, another audience may want a bit more, it to be a bit more professional and refined. So if you just follow those key headings there, you'll get some really key insights as to how you take products to market. And then defining your value proposition. So all of the work that you'll have done with the personas will really help you define the value proposition. And it's really important that you start with your why. This is a well-versed model, but too many businesses focus on their features and benefits when they're selling their products, when actually, if you can tap into a higher purpose as to why you exist as a brand or why your service exists, it can actually be really powerful. And again, if you can shape it around the customer themselves and put them as the hero character, it can be very powerful. So essentially, it's about telling your story. I mean, if you take an example like Tesla motor vehicles, people don't buy Tesla cars because they have the best interiors or they do the fastest 0 to 60. They're actually buying into a wider purpose around environmental issues. That Tesla very much position themselves as a tech company, but essentially they're not selling cars. They're selling that purpose. And if you can tap into that, it can be it can bring you to the forefront and help you really develop your marketing strategy. So once you've established your personas, you've established your proposition, that will then do all the hard work for you in terms of your marketing strategy. And there's just some examples here, some B2B brands, some B2C, but if you can define your proposition in a few lines and then build on it with your marketing material, it can help you be consistent throughout your different channels. So we look at an example, and this is just one example. There are many ways of defining your value proposition, but this is the value proposition canvas. And essentially on the right hand side, you've got everything about the customer. So what jobs or tasks do they need? What are their needs? And that could be, I need a website built, or I'd like to take my offering online e-commerce, through to their pain points and the gains, what's in it for them. And then on the left hand side, you've got what you are as a business, so your products and services, your pain relievers against those pains of the customer, and also the gain creators as well. So on the next slide, I've just kind of done a quick example of what that might look like. So if you take one of our customer personas, a marketing manager, they may want to get their website refreshed, and there'll be a number of reasons for that. They'll be looking to get more inquiries or sales online. They'll be looking to reposition their brand, deliver their messaging better, or it might just be that their current site doesn't represent them very well. But their pains may have been that they've had a poor experience beforehand. So there's a nervousness around trust. They might be time poor, not sure about some of the technicalities, but I think this is really important. And this is more of an emotional response. It's a fear of failure or a need to impress their board or their boss. And that feeds into the gains as well. They might be looking to get a promotion, a pay rise based on the results that they're getting. So I think when we look at these pain points and also the gains, that you have to remember there is an individual person behind all of this. It's not just the business. So if you can start alleviating some of those personal or internal concerns or ambitions, then you can actually create something that's really powerful. And that's what we're doing over on the left-hand side in terms of pain relievers. We're talking about making their life easy. So they're time poor, they've probably got a team to manage, they've probably got a million other things. If we can evidence how we can do that and show them a plan and a roadmap to deliver their project and almost take the lead on that, then it's alleviating a lot of the things that they're worried about. We can use case studies to evidence things that we've done before to show the quality of work. But it's just a really useful exercise. And again, it's well worthwhile doing it with your team as well, because there'll be all sorts of great ideas that come from different areas of the business. And this is our proposition really is about making life easy. So it's about, we design market digital products that make life easy for your customers. But that principle about make life easy isn't just for businesses, customers, and helping them to buy from our clients, but it's also, again, how we manage the projects, how we make it easy for our clients, help them understand what we're doing, keep them up to date all the time, but also help them streamline in the background. How can they operate better? How can we streamline their delivery, their service? And that'll be through things like integrations of different platforms with websites. So the next step, once you've got your proposition, is really placing your customer at the heart of your digital strategy. And I would recommend, there's so many businesses out there that haven't got a CRM system, and I'd recommend that everybody goes out now and does a bit of research. I mean, we use HubSpot, which is a great system, but once you start developing that customer relationship management system, you start to harness data that you're gathering, and whether that's inquiries through your website or whether it's downloading ebooks and content, it really helps shape your digital customer journey. And I'll talk about that shortly, but it's really about designing appropriate conversion driven customer journey. So from initial brand touch point through to your actual website itself, always have what you want the customer to do in mind, and then design and activate campaigns around that. So a simple digital customer journey might look like this, and this is really simple. So it might be a social ad or a PPC ad that drives people to your website. They then either buy a product or they submit a form fill, they get a thank you email. But actually, what you really want to start doing, if you start designing what your digital customer journey is you start to think about things like building trust and rapport with a customer, building brand affinity, and positioning yourself as the guide. You're here to help and placing them as a hero in the story, but ultimately be consistent throughout. So if I just talk through this design customer journey, we've got that initial touch point, and someone might visit your website, but you may then want to start retargeting them with ads or drive them to download an ebook then. And at that point, that's when you then capture their details that can be pushed directly into your CRM. And all of this can be automated. But once they're in your CRM, you can then really start to build a relationship with them through email marketing, lookalike audiences, and start really growing your audience. So an example of that, the customer reads the content in the email, they then arrive back on your website, and because you've built that rapport with them, and you start to position yourself as a thought leader in your market, they then more than likely to interact and submit an inquiry with your brand. Because let's face it, not everybody's going to buy first time. It is about building a digital relationship. And then ultimately make life easy for them. So remove any obstacles in that journey, select the appropriate channels and be targeted to your personas, and simplify the effort that they need to commit to make contact with you. So what all of this then shapes is building narratives. So if we focus on the pain points of the persona, we can then start to build our marketing strategy around these different narratives. So there was an element of trust and concerns with this persona. So you start sharing evidence and case studies, and split the case studies up into smaller posts, bite-sized bits of content, and testimonials and reviews. Then you've got thought leadership and really positioning yourself as an expert in your field. Our proposition is around make life easy. So how have we done that for other customers, and how are we evidencing that? Recommending software and tools in your email marketing that will help your audience do their job better or help them streamline. And then also people and culture. So tell stories about your team. It's not all about business. Let's have some fun along the way. People like to know who they're going to work with. And then there's a nice exercise. How can we wow? And essentially what this is getting your team together and drawing two circles on the wall or on a flip chart, and really writing down in the center circle all of the things that your customer expects from your service. And actually it's quite a lot. It's quite challenging to just deliver a good service and simply that. But once you've done that, you can then start to identify opportunities of how you can wow your customers. So you take a hotel, they may want to start offering personalized welcomes, offering different drinks that maybe a customer has chosen on the booking journey. But for them to be able to do that, they'll have had to have built that into their booking journey. So it starts to shape what you need to do as a business to start implementing some of these ideas. So I'm just going to hand over to Martin Proctor now, who's going to talk about, once you've kind of got that customer engaged with your brand, how to do, how to sell to them effectively remotely. So I'll just hand over to Martin and let him carry on with the webinar. Okay, I think we may have lost Martin, so I'll carry on. Essentially, with remote selling, it's different, and for a number of reasons. So the challenge that we have with remote selling is it's going to be shorter interactions as opposed to face-to-face. But actually, the opportunity is that us as individuals and as businesses, we get some more time back. So we're not traveling to to that meeting. We're not having that almost chit chat before we get into business. And whilst that might feel alien at first, it's actually more efficient. So the opportunity is that we can operate more efficiently, less relationship development. That's more. Hello, Martin.
Rob, I'm back. I'm back.
Over to you then.
Oh, I hate technology. You know, we rehearsed this so many times, and yet we've been struggling since about 11:57 with the camera. Anyway, sorry about that, everybody. I'm here now, even if a bit whited out. So what I was going to say was it is all different in a way, and the interactions with people when you're doing this remotely tend to be shorter. They don't tend to give you as much time, so it's harder to develop the relationship. And global competition happens. People from outside are going to come in and try and sell to your customers because they can do that virtually now. The opportunity, on the other hand, is that because the calls are shorter, you've got more time to make calls throughout the day. There's more people you can speak to, and often you can get to more senior people. It gives you a chance to differentiate as well. If you can really master the art of doing well-expressed, particularly video connections remotely with people, you will look better than other people. Make sure the technology works is a tip. And global competition, you know, you no longer need to constrain yourself to just working your current geography. You can go out and you can sell to a much wider community. Next slide, please, Rob. So despite all this, it is still the same. When you're selling, you still need to understand what the client is all about. You need to do your research, understand him in the way that Rob talked about it. You need to qualify their interest, understand the likelihood of them buying the sort of things that you're doing, tell them about your solution, go through the close, handle the objections. All of the good sales techniques that you'll have built up over the years, what professional selling is all about, understanding needs and addressing them, is still entirely valid. Nothing changes. Next slide, please. One thing to note, though, is that there's a difference in the emotional response when you're working on this sort of media. I mean, we all know at the moment that the market feels different. There's an anxiety and nervousness. People aren't sure where their business is going. There's the worries about social distancing and the virus and so on. So there's an anxiety out there where trust really matters. It's so important to build trust, and it is harder when you're doing this remotely. You'll find that when you do calls, people will find it harder to concentrate and stay focused. They'll often get distracted by things. They want to finish the call, get on with other things. It's less relaxed than when you've got a human-to-human interaction. And also, you'll only see people's heads and shoulders. You don't get the full interaction. You don't get all the clues there, really, and you probably won't have to chit-chat. So building empathy with people and building that trust is harder. So be tuned into that. Look out for things carefully. Be mindful of time. Don't overrun. And if you do that, you're going to start to differentiate yourself. Next slide, please. There's a question about whether to use voice or video. Video is undoubtedly a more effective way of communicating with people. It builds a relationship between you. You pick up visual clues from the other person as to what they're thinking. You can transmit more about what your message is. You'll get more attention. We've all been on calls, conference calls, where you can scribble, do your emails, write your shopping list, whatever. But with video, it's hard to do that. You will be focused on the other person, and you can build that connection and that trust. If you can do all that, and if you're comfortable with that, and I think these days, particularly over the last couple of months, everyone's learned how to do that, then use video. That is a good thing to do. Okay, next slide, please. So having botched up how I use my video, let me tell you how you should use video. There's loads of different apps out there. Do sort the technology out. You have to have fast internet. That's just a given. If you're on slow internet and it's very blocky and pixelated and you keep dropping out, it's irritating as anything. So just go somewhere with this fast internet. Don't apologize, just relocate. It may be you need to go and sit outside McDonald's and use their Wi-Fi or whatever it is, just get it fast. And make sure you've got a decent camera and microphone and one that works. You can pick up a good webcam for like 50 quid or so, and it makes such a difference to the videos that are built into most PCs. So have a play with that and see what you can do. And know how to use the application, particularly if you're screen sharing. You don't want to inappropriately screen share things you didn't mean to. And then think about yourself. Think about visibility. Get the lighting right. Good example. Sorry about that. I'll spend some time afterwards fixing my Logitech webcam. You can see in the example here, the top one completely dark. You can't really pick up what that guy is saying. The second one's overexposed, and the third one with Rob, it looks good, you know. And you think about what's behind him. He's in his funky jewelry quarter creative agency studio there. The lighting's good. You can see what he's doing. He's energized. He's happy. He's kind of communicating well. He's eye to eye. All those good things. The final thing I would talk about, the next slide, please, Rob, is about how to actually do the web presentations that we all want to do these days. The big difference in doing web presentations is that the focus needs to be on the slides with you supporting it. Whereas if you're doing a person-to-person, in-person presentation at a conference or whatever, the focus will be on you and the slides will be backing you up. So the slides need to be more active. There needs to be more material there, more movement, keep it tight. Don't have too much text on it, obviously. Use animations carefully, don't exhaust people with it, but give it that sort of buzz. Next slide, please. So we know that we're going to have less time and attention from people that we're talking to on a video. They'll give you 30 minutes perhaps, but you need to make the best use of that. So do some research, build some credibility by knowing about your client. Just Google them and find out what's going on there. Have a thought through call plan. Be very clear the objectives of the call, what you're trying to do here, what the questions are you going to go through, what you want to find out, what your closing actions might be, and so on. Keep it focused, keep to time, let them talk. People are always happier to talk. Don't try and talk over them. Don't waffle. Keep it to time, run it through. Think about the questions you may get answered, you may get asked, make sure you get answers for them. And then at the end, do a summary, work out what the actions are, and then email those out. And think about what the next step would be in terms of progressing them to a sale. So I think that kind of summarizes what I would see as the key elements there in terms of the webinars and how to sell and how this remote session works. So apologies for my technical issues, and let me hand back to Rob.
Thanks, Martin, and thank you everybody for attending the webinar. If you want to download the slides, you can go to lightboxdigital.co.uk/webinar. We'll also post a link on our LinkedIn page, and alternatively, you can email or give us a call. I think we're moving now to a Q&A session.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Rob, Richard and Martin. That was incredibly insightful. I hope everyone took a piece of something away from those slides. Yeah, we've got a few questions that have come in. Maybe just open to the floor here. You mentioned opportunities, but for a lot of businesses at the moment, they are operating on a low budget, and during this time, delivery might be kind of challenging. For example, you mentioned standing out from the crowd almost, and sometimes that takes a lot of budget. Is maybe communication with your customers at the moment the number one focus, or are there any kind of quick wins and way to stand out at the moment? Is that through social media? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as Richard said in his section, just identifying, speaking to all of your customers that you already have, and seeing what their challenges are currently is a great start. But I think you can achieve quite a lot of reach by being regular and consistent on social. I mean, even if you are looking to really kind of widen your scope and not just communicate with your current audience on social, you can put some ad budget into social, and actually we've achieved quite a lot. We've been working with a number of clients through this last kind of couple of months, and we've achieved some really good results in terms of social ad spend and return for that spend. So I guess it's just about being consistent, but doing something, because a lot of businesses are kind of, I guess, almost mothballing. There's a real opportunity to stand out.
Can I just add also, I think it's a bit about being a contact sport at the moment. So it's just about actually getting in touch with customers and finding out about what their pains and problems are, and trying to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and actually once you and listening, what are their challenges, what are their issues, and then actually thinking about some of the things I spoke about in terms of how you can help them overcome those challenges and problems.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much. Another one from Rob here, actually. What's the one digital skill that business needs to upskill over the next few months, you'd say?
The one digital skill?
Yeah, if out of anything that you could do.
Yeah, I think that's really difficult to answer in terms of one digital skill, because there's too many things that, as per the webinar, that go into before you even start digital. I think you know, if you haven't got a proposition and you've just been very scattergun approach to anything, I don't think that any kind of digital tactic is going to help you. So, but that being said, if you've got all of those things in order, I genuinely feel that at the moment social media is a huge opportunity, and even dare I say pay-per-click advertising. I mean, when we first went into this kind of pandemic, the price cost per click across the board of the marketplace, it dropped significantly in terms of PPC. So yeah. I think that I think social media is the biggest kind of investment of upskilling that you could do as a business at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant. And kind of you mentioned email marketing as well, and the importance of kind of this engagement with your customers. What sort of like frequency would you maybe put out these emails to your customers without like bombarding them, or kind of like a healthy relationship with them?
It depends what you've got to say. I think if you're just kind of giving a roundup of and sharing what's happened on, let's say you're posting to social consistently and doing all of that thought leadership work. If you want to kind of gather that into one place and make it easy for people to be able to access, I think once a week is great in a B2B arena. If you are sharing some really insightful stuff, especially in this time, you know, you could do more. It just depends. You don't want to be overloading people with the same kind of content.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. We've got a question in the chat here from Edwin Ladd from Mr. Ladd Media. Once you have done this customer process and mapped out the gains and struggles for your clients, how is it best to deliver the pitch over for your new offering to the customer? I know, Martin, you touched over this, but is there kind of maybe one proven method that stands above the rest?
Sorry, that broke up. Could you say that last bit again?
Yeah, sorry. So once you have completed like a customer process and mapped out the gains and struggles for your clients, how is it best to maybe deliver a pitch of your new offering to the customer? I know you mentioned, for example, Zoom or whatever.
I think the key thing is to show some empathy and understanding of the client's situation. Think carefully about that. You don't want to, if they're having a tough time, you don't want to rub their faces in it. I think it's always good to focus on the upside and show and try and visualize what life could be like if you could help them improve and get better. And then from that, have a structured approach to what they might do next. As you go through, keep testing the temperature. See if they agree with your diagnosis, see if they accept your ideas on how you might improve matters, and then move through to what's the next action, what are we going to do with this?
Brilliant. And one from Sharon. Do you think the core to a marketing strategy has to be getting your website right first?
I think websites play a huge part in the marketing strategy, because really any outreach that you are doing, it doesn't matter whether that's online or offline, ultimately are going to lead back to your website at some point in that journey. So to make it deliver your proposition clearly, not overwhelm people, deliver a good user experience, and ultimately make it easy for people to make contact with you is vital, really.
Yeah.
There's a personality to it as well. You know, I think that's really important too.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Even for the chamber, like the chamber website is the front of the shop, as it were, online, and anything we post through digital media or social media, we always like putting a link in there to the website just for ease, basically, and customer experience. So yeah, I completely back that up. And kind of finally, do you offer free reviews from PJ Ellis?
Yeah, we do, yeah. And you know what, even more so in this time, we're happy to talk to anybody and you know, just help them and give advice, because you know, it's not, yes, at the moment investment, it does seem like you know, a risk or a big step to take, but at the same time, those that are investing time and energy into their business can really, you know, we believe will really prosper when as we come out of this. And to be fair, the tide is changing. It does feel different now. I mean, you know, we're even back in the office a few days a week at the moment.
No, brilliant. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up there, if that's all right. I just want to say thank you again to our speakers. It's been very insightful, and again, I hope everyone's taken some useful information going through this difficult time, and I wish you all the best of luck. So yeah, thank you very much, and as I mentioned before, look out for upcoming webinars, all found on our website. Yeah, thank you very much for joining all.
Yep, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.